Listen, we all have feelings about the Georgia football team. You do.
Yeah.
I do. Clint does. But can we please try to agree on some words that more accurately describe this Georgia football team rather than just saying they suck today on the Locked On Bulldogs podcast?
You are Locked On Bulldogs, your daily podcast on the Georgia Bulldogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everybody. Everydayers that are here every single day and the first listeners. We appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. This is Locked On Bulldogs. I'm Clint. He is Daniel. Together, we are Locked On Bulldogs. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time, gametime.co. Download the Game Time app today. More on them in a second. Daniel teased it in the open. This team might not be your favorite thing on the planet. This team may infuriate you as you go to watch your Saturday. Maybe you're thinking to yourself, Saturdays is my little sanctuary, my little slice of time where I just get the only time during my week where I'm not inundated by people or work. It's your little sanctuary. It's your little Superman's grotto up there in the Fortress of Solitude.
Sure.
Well, Georgia's been basically saying no thank you to any of that. It's been hair pulling at times. It's been heart racing at times, but not in the good ways. And everybody apparently is saying, every Georgia fan says, we just suck. There's no other word. We just suck so radically. Today, we're going to give you a little bit more. We're going to widen your vocabulary list. We're going to give you more words to describe instead of saying we suck. Because there's many teams that suck. USC sucks. Lincoln Riley sucks as a head coach.
Sure.
We're not in that category.
Oklahoma sucks. That team sucks.
I've never seen an offense so demoralized in my entire life.
Let me say this right off the jump, if I may, Clint. May I?
You may.
Coaches who are outmanned in a road environment, who score a touchdown in the waning seconds and have a chance to go for two and win the game and save their job, and instead decide to kick the extra point, go to overtime, and get crushed by Tennessee in overtime, those coaches suck.
Yeah.
Like, that's a great example of someone who sucks.
Correct.
This Georgia football team doesn't suck. We're not trying to convince you that they're not upsetting, that they're not disappointing, that they haven't let you down in some way, that they're not worse than some other version of the Georgia football team. None of that. That's not what we're here to do. So don't think we're jumping on you. Don't think we're criticizing your opinions. We're trying to give you more words that more accurately describe who this Georgia football team is. And I think the first word is actually a word we're going to borrow right from Kirby Smart's press conference today on Monday as we record this. Kirby Smart meets with the media, and he says what he said many times so far this season. And you can call it coach speak all you want, but just look at the product on the field, and the man is not lying. We've said many times before, Kirby Smart will not tell you the truth, but he also will not lie to you. Like, those are two distinctly different things. Kirby describes this team as inconsistent, Clint, and I think that's the number one word that I would use to describe this Georgia team. I mean, we don't have to go far to see evidence of this, right?
No, we don't.
Georgia's offense last week against Ole Miss absolutely comes out and lays the wood to Mississippi State. I'm sorry, I said Ole Miss. Absolutely lays the wood to Mississippi State. Georgia's offense in the second half against Alabama absolutely cannot be stopped. First half against Alabama, well, that's a little bit of a different thing. Second half against Clemson, great offense. First half against Clemson, terrible offense. Georgia's defense, I mean, you could go play by play in that Mississippi State game. There were times when Georgia's defense looked lights out. Absolutely lights out. And then there were times when Georgia's defense was letting guys run wide open. And I don't just mean the touchdowns. There were so many third down conversions when the tight end leaked out into the flat and nobody, Clint, went with him. No one. Not a single person had eyes on the primary wide receiver target in the play call. Every single linebacker was busy staring into the backfield, looking at exactly what the Mississippi State offensive coordinating staff wanted them to be looking at. This team is painfully inconsistent. You saw it. I mean, the Alabama game is the biggest. It is the most obvious, the most glaring time when it shows up because it was a tale literally of two halves. But you look across the board from this Georgia team, it's not that they've been bad. It's on average, they've been better than average. Like on the whole, they've been pretty good.
Yeah, we said in the Mississippi State game to begin, Daniel, we were commenting back and forth over the action of these linebackers, the action of the defensive line. We thought they were crisp. We thought they were flying around. We thought they were getting dominant on the defensive line, which, by the way, statistics back up that the Havoc grade on defensive line is doing quite well, almost 2021, 2022 levels of Havoc on the defensive line. It just turns out the defensive backs decide when they want to cover the receivers that they're assigned to at times. And you can't do anything about that. Wildly inconsistent. Kirby said this. Malachi Stark said this. Everybody's saying this. Put together 4 quarters of a game, things might be different and things might change. That's where it comes down to. And even Carson Beck, he is the third most prolific yards in the. He's inconsistent. That interception, it's the first interception, stupid doink off a helmet. Whatever. That's
a weird, trivial thing that cannot be. Yeah, exactly.
And then he balled, and he has all the yards. He has the touchdowns. He has the pocket presence. He has accuracy. It's great. The touch on the ball, the deep balls, they're all there. Then he throws a stupid, boneheaded red zone interception, and you just scratch your head and go, that looks the spectrum of horrible to great oscillates every other play, it seems like, or it could. It's a coin.
How about the offensive line?
Which one are we going to get?
How about the offensive line? Really, really good at times.
Yeah.
Clean pockets for Carson Beck in that Mississippi State game. I mean, he had all day to throw in that game. And it showed 18-yard reception, Dom Lovett, 20-yard reception, Dom Lovett. Like, it showed over and over again these long in-breaking routes across the middle, these slow developing plays. Carson Beck just stood back there and had all day to pick apart the Mississippi State defense, and he absolutely did. And then there are times when we need to run the ball 2 yards forward, and this offensive line gets blown off the ball like it is Black Friday at a Walmart in 1998, and they are just getting
he needs
trampled.
To go get that toy.
He needs it. This offensive line, wildly inconsistent. Every position group you could go through and say it. It's not that Georgia sucks.
No.
It's that when Georgia sucks, Clint, they really, really, really suck. Like that first quarter against Alabama.
Okay.
The lows are very, very low. The offensive performance against Kentucky, the lows are the secondary against Mississippi State. That's what sticks in your mind as a Georgia fan, and you see it and you're like, this team sucks.
But that's not the whole story.
No, they don't.
That's not the whole story. We're going to come back next, give you one more word and then a third word at the end. We're going to do some history lesson for you as well, because y'all need a dose of that. Georgia fan, y'all need a dose of history, because you guys are just, we are living too much in the moment. But first, these. When you're hiring for small businesses, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role in a given month. Over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking for LinkedIn, Looking in the wrong place. LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows small businesses are wearing many hats and might not have time and resource to hire. LinkedIn is consistently finding ways to make the process easier. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Daniel, inconsistent is a word that Kirby Smart is using. We will agree with, because we need 4 quarters of a game. We don't need highs that high and lows that low. I will take somewhere in the middle for 4 quarters and roll the dice on what that would mean, because I think consistently over the course of 4 quarters, we come out on top a great deal. That's not the only word. We're trying to educate ourselves with understanding.
Okay.
Give us the second word to expand our vocabulary.
The second word is, unlike many teams in college football, this Georgia football team is legitimately tested. This is a tested football team. Now, let me explain what that doesn't mean before we get into what it does mean, Clint. It does not mean that Georgia has only performed poorly against really good opponents, as if that is the excuse for Georgia's poor performances. It's not. If you recall back to segment 1, Clint, the excuse for Georgia's poor performances is they are inconsistent. It's not a defense against Georgia.
No.
This is an indictment against Georgia. But what this Georgia football team is, and a reason that you should not just go around willy-nilly saying, oh, this team sucks. This team, unlike many of the teams in college football, has been tested by quality opponents that are proving themselves to be worthy adversaries, actual tests to who Georgia is. And if a team hopes to get better, Clint, over the course of a season, Kirby talks about this all the time, and Georgia fans don't want to hear it, because we want our team to be dominant week 1, and we want them to continue to be dominant all the way through week 15. If a team is going to get better, and let's just face it, that's what Georgia needs to do. Georgia
Correct.
needs to get better.
Uh-huh.
What's the best way to get better, Clint? No, sorry. What's the only way to get better?
Thank you. I was going to say, not the best way. The only way is to play competition above you, to not beat down on people, to not swing low, but rather to swing up, go up a weight class.
You don't want to be like a sweet chariot. That's what my man is saying. You don't want to be like that.
Don't swing low. Like, that's a different thing. Okay. We can talk about that at a different time. That's not now. Daniel, we want to go ahead and punch up. And this is what's wild to me. If you go ahead and look, this is where history comes in a little bit for y'all. 2000, I'm going to go back. Many of you aren't going to be happy with this. Alabama, 2014 championship run goes into the game. Alabama plays West Virginia, Florida Atlantic, Southern Miss, and Florida, beats them, trounces them, kills most of the opponents. They get to go to Ole Miss. They go to Oxford, and they lose 17-23. The next week they come back. They play Arkansas, not unranked. Ole Miss is the only one so far. Arkansas, they go wire to wire, 14-13 against Arkansas. Barely come away with a win after losing to Ole Miss, the only ranked opponent they have. They finally get their act together. They finally get a wake-up call. 2014, on their way to a playoff, into a national championship run against Ohio State, loses January 1. Yep. They can't finish it out, but they started then. And then they go Texas A&M, LSU, who was 14th, Mississippi State, who was first, Auburn 15th, Missouri 16th. They carry that into the playoff. They had a hiccup. They were untested before that. They get smacked around. And many of us want to go ahead and say, okay, yes, I get it. I see it. Look, there was an untested team. They had potential. They made a run in the playoff. They needed punched around. Well, look at even where our schedule is compared to that. They needed that. We went toe-to-toe against our hardest schedule, against the most difficult schedule that we have ever faced. Actually, as a matter of fact, since I think 96 is what I saw today, Daniel, we have the hardest schedule in college football since 96. Okay, great. That's our schedule. We're not making any excuses. We got to go play it. We are playing it. But here's the other thing. LSU goes and plays Ole Miss. Everybody's saying Ole Miss is this absolute. Ole Miss is untested, by the way. Haven't played nobody. Already lost to a nobody, by the way. ain't
Yeah.
played nobody, and lost to nobody.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna just tell you this: Ole Miss led the country in sacks coming into yesterday.
Yeah.
It was against LSU. Led the nation in sacks. You know how many sacks they had against LSU?
Probably a lot.
No, they had 0.
Oh, it was none.
It was none.
Well, LSU didn't have to drop back and pass any, right, in that game. Like, it's not like LSU dropped back to pass.
Exclusively had to go on Nussmeier's arm.
They
Okay.
went ahead and did.
LSU had 6 sacks in the game. The offense for Ole Miss averaging 55 points a game in non-conference play. All of a sudden, they get into the SEC and they're averaging 23 points per game.
It's almost as if you look at a stat like, the people at ESPN, like Bill Connolly and guys like that, they put together this strength of record.
Interesting.
Right? It's not just a reflection on your strength of schedule. It's how you have performed against that strength of schedule. Georgia. So it takes your wins and losses into account, as it should. This is football. We're trying to win games.
You win games.
Ole Miss 38th on that strength of record. Way on down there. Let me talk about a one-loss team like, Ohio State.
Oh, gosh, here we go.
They come in at 14th on that strength of record. Georgia's at 7th in terms of strength of record. They are the highest ranked one-loss team on this entire list. Every team above them is undefeated. There are multiple undefeated teams, Power 5 undefeated teams below them, meaning Georgia's 5-1 is better than their 6-0. And these are Power 5 undefeated teams that we're talking about. Georgia going 5-1 against the schedule. It is not an indicator that Georgia is going to go ahead and run the table. Because, by the way, Georgia's got the second most difficult remaining strength of schedule. They've already gone to Alabama. They still have the second most difficult remaining strength of schedule in the country. It's not to say that Georgia's going to win all these games.
Nope.
It's to say that the thing Georgia desperately needs is to improve. And Georgia has given themselves as much chance to improve as any team in college football. Now, we'll see down the stretch how that pans out. We'll see what adjustments are made in the secondary. We'll see what happens with Carson Beck. We'll see what happens with these wide receivers. Some of those questions are being answered week to week. If you just pull your head out of the sand for 1 second.
There it is.
Stop looking at Dalen Everett as much as we'd like to be looking at him.
I can't.
And start looking at, Dylan Bell.
Ooh.
Making an A.D. Mitchell contested catch in the end zone. Start looking at Anthony Evans. All of a sudden finding a role in this team, and Kirby saying, yeah, we're going to play him a lot more.
That's on me. You know what? That's on me. We'll just go ahead and...
We're going to go ahead and get him out there a lot more. You're starting to see some of the questions be answered, which leads us in to our third word to describe this team like a pro transition right after this.
This is, in fact, Game Time, gametime.co or the Game Time app. Get it right now. Daniel and I, we go every single time we want to go to the game, which Daniel was on Saturday. He was in Athens because he went
Shout
to
out, by the way, if you yelled at me as I was walking up to the concession stand and I didn't get your name, shout out to you. Whoever
I would have remembered it. Don't worry. He's that.
He didn't give it to me. The guy was a long way away. Just saying hello.
Game Time is fantastic. Is where you go ahead and get every single thing you need for the best atmosphere, the best places to go right now. There's a super deal. You go ahead and toggle the feature on. It gives you these deals, and it lets you know the all-in pricing of every single ticket. You don't have to guess. You don't have to figure out how many fees. It's critical. It's fantastic. Game Time picks. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. There's all-in pricing. Toggle feature that shows total upfront, no surprise fees at checkout. And it's got this coverage that your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticket industry. Take the guesswork out of buying your tickets on Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app. Create an account. Use code LOCKEDONCollege, $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time.
All right, Clint, we gave the first two words. Georgia has not played wonderfully this year. They've not
No.
met all of our expectations. They have been
No.
frustrating at times. They've been disappointing at times.
They have.
But don't go around saying things like Georgia sucks,
Don't.
because that's dumb. It's foolishness.
Well, it's just inaccurate. That's
It
what
just
it is.
makes you sound foolish, because Georgia is very much a college football playoff team.
5-1.
Very much still in the mix. You name a team that you're dead certain right now, today, is better than Georgia. You're dead certain is better than Georgia.
Texas, I'm still on record. Texas finishes the season with 2 losses.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to find out a lot about Georgia and Texas this weekend, y'all. But right now, today, we're not trying to tell you that Georgia hasn't been disappointing. But there are better words than sucks. Georgia has been inconsistent. Georgia has been tested, unlike many teams in college football. Clint, what's our last word that we're going to leave the people with today?
Daniel, you ever get that perfect round cut on one side of the beautiful brisket meat, and you've taken all the off that you need to.
Yeah.
You've wrapped it up. You're
all
about to put it
up.
All the trim. It's all trimmed up. It's beautiful. Got that point to it. You got that smoker going, and the smoke is just billowing out. It's just
cooking. Yeah.
And you place that in there, and you sit back. You put the thermometer in. You got that time going.
Yeah.
What's the worst thing you could do to that brisket before the time is done, Daniel?
Keep opening that lid, checking on it.
Why you got to open the lid and check on it, yo?
You don't want to be checking on it now. Just let her go.
Let her go. It's, and I know it's going to be fine.
She going to be fine in there.
The third word is this. We're marinating, y'all. Ooh. This team is marinating. It is smoking. It's getting all them juices. Here's the deal. Last week, and we see this out of Kirby. Kirby had a coaching philosophy. Upperclassmen, guys who block, guys who do assignment will be fine. Okay. I saw this last week, a couple of trends break from classic Kirby. One of them was Anthony
Evans. This week. You're going to see another one this week. He wears number 1. He plays defense.
I'm telling you right now. If number 1 Ellis Robinson is named as a starter or in the first rotation, I am going to live action and I am betting a hefty sum on the money line for Georgia.
I'm a fan. But you saw it in Anthony Evans already, to your point, Clint.
You saw Anthony Evans can't block worth a lick on the outside.
Don't even care about it.
I don't.
He may as well play for Ohio State. That's how little he cares about blocking.
He's gonna get coached up. We saw that. We saw Mike Bobo's kid running down field, just trying to get after it on a block, on a little pass play, a little screen play to the outside. We see Kirby going to the well of underperforming or under-tested or undeveloped guys, getting them in game and seeing what's going to happen. Frazier is going to be thrust into that role as well. Okay. Anthony Evans thrust into the role. Ellis Robinson maybe thrust into the role. Maybe we're going to have a couple other freshman linebackers. Chris Cole thrust into the role.
Yeah.
We're marinating.
Penalty, by the way, called on that young man in that game. The only snap I saw other than special teams that he got in the game.
Yep.
Egregious third down penalty.
Disgusting.
7 points, Clint. That penalty was worth 7 points.
Okay. We might see more of that, and that's fine with it because this team is marinating, y'all. If you let them keep cooking, if you let them do their thing, you let them get out. You saw Carson Beck bounce back. You saw him have great times. You saw ETN. You saw Frazier. You saw these guys bounce back. You saw Freeling go ahead and get the same amount of reps, probably even more this game than we've seen before. We saw
What are you seeing with the tight end rotation? What are you seeing with Oscar Delp and Lawson Lucky and the balance of snaps there?
And he bounced back this game. Daniel,
he did bounce back. But Lawson Lucky, the underproven, underutilized, less trusted guy, proved himself to be more effective. And all of a sudden, you're seeing his snap count go way up. You're seeing this over and over again.
Over and over. So I think we are an extremely young team. We're extremely green. And that's crazy because we return so many people on offense. A good amount on defense, not everybody, but a good amount. We lost a lot of secondary, a lot of linebacker, quite a few defensive line, but we still had snaps coming back. Now all of a sudden, I think what I'm saying, that the word to describe this team is pick a new name my name 2 years ago, it seemed like 2 years ago, but it was only last year, CJ Allen. That ain't the name at linebacker for me anymore. Raylan Wilson might not be the name. I mean, again, we might see another dude in there trying to get spots. Defensive line, again, Nazir Stackhouse was a name that we wanted to call quite a bit. Kristen Miller is doing his thing on rundowns. My gosh, rundowns, first, second down. Kristen Miller is absolutely just busting fools' heads. That dude knows how to do that on rundowns. What I'm saying is, if you just trust the process, instead of calling for people's heads, instead of saying people suck, as Dan and I were talking about Oscar Delp, we were calling for his head. He bounced back quite nice, and Lost and Lucky is still number one. We were calling for a number of people just to get out of town. I was calling for Dan Jackson never to suit up again. Y'all, Dan Jackson is the most sure tackler on this team.
Can I, it's easy to look back, Clint.
Okay.
And recognize these types of things. Can I extrapolate this forward? I heard a guy one time say, Clint, if at every season of your life previous to now, you look back at your old self and think, man, that guy was an idiot. Right? Every single season, like that guy didn't know what he was. That guy did not know what he was doing. He had all these crazy ideas. He was not like, he didn't have this. He didn't have this. What do you think 10 years from now, you're going to look back at yourself right now and think, do you see? So I want to just go ahead and, so we said that about Dan Jackson. We said that about Oscar Delp, but they bounced back. Well, does that mean something about Dalen Everett? Does that mean something about Julio Humphreys? Does that mean something about Daniel Harris? Like, who are the guys on the team right now that maybe we could just learn a little bit from our past selves and say,
let your past self teach you.
Yeah,
be taught.
Maybe they had bad performances. They've looked sloppy. They've been inconsistent.
Sure.
No excuses being made. All I'm trying to say is, yeah, Ellis Robinson may find himself in the game, and I hope he does, because he's looked really good when he's gotten time on the field. KJ Bolden's going to continue to grow in his role, and I hope he does, because he's looked really good when he's been on the field. But let's not just start writing people off as if they suck, because that's the easiest thing to type on your social media account. They suck is not only unhelpful, it's also wildly inaccurate about the way that these guys are playing down in and down out. The lows have been very low.
Yeah.
But that's not the entirety of the result. If it were, this Georgia football team would be 0-6.
And we're 5-1, and we're not Ole Miss. Ole Miss is out of the playoffs right now, y'all, because if you don't understand they're going to lose another game, they're done. They have to try to
Lane Kiffin is currently job hunting.
100%
Lane Kiffin
true.
is polishing the resume, and he will be making frequent trips to Gainesville in the next 3 to 6 weeks.
We're not, and you all wanted to be stat-looking, Ole Miss loving people. They weren't tested. We knew they were fraudulent. They showed themselves to be fraudulent. This team is not perfect. We don't suck. We have everything in front of us, and we're 5-1 heading into our toughest schedule that we've ever faced. And you know what, guys? I'm here for it. We make it out of the schedule. We make it out of the schedule with 2 losses.
Let's just see what happens.
Let's just chill. That's it. That's all we're saying.
Let's see what happens.
He is Daniel. I am Clint. This is Locked On Bulldogs, part of Locked On Podcast, and we're your team every single day. We'll see you guys next time. We'll be talking more about them dogs. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
See ya.